Speaking of servers, didn't we have a discussion before about the fact that the server was out in the open in an unsecured spot and where there were no cameras and...
What's that, the old server?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it was out in the open. It was unsecured.
Yeah.
I mean, it was only secured, you know. I mean, there was no, I don't believe there was any door on that room. Even if there was a door, you couldn't shut it because Judd would jump over his desk because it was basically in a closet. And you know, he would jump over the desk, and that was actually a dangerous thing. And you know, when the insurance people came through, they were looking at that, going, "Oh my God," you know, it's like.
Hey, from what I understand, they don't have insurance right now.
Yeah. I found it interesting that the day that I was, I mean, this is quite a coincidence. The day that I was being fired, I was still working. I was getting the last of the stuff out of the old building before they destroyed it, and I basically finished it. But when I was going back over there to get some more stuff, I noticed a $100 bill on the floor, and it wasn't there. I mean, I've just been in the building, and I came back out. It wasn't there before, and I'm like, there's not been anybody in this building that I know of, and why would they be here? Because there's nothing here. And I'm like, well, that's been planted for one thing, and I'm like, I'm not falling for this. You know, it's like I wouldn't do anything anyway. And I'm like looking around, going, is there cameras here watching me or something? And I'm like, so I don't even touch this bill. I put it on a pen. I whip out my pen and put it on there, and I carry it all the way back to the other building. And this one guy sees me and he goes, "What is that, dirty money or what? You don't want to touch it? It's dirty money." I go, "I think it's pretty dirty money."
Yeah. It's on the floor for a reason. Check my integrity and my ethics, so they can slam me for that.
Yeah, and that was the day they were in there in the office, and I see Gary, Judd, and I'm not sure who else. There was Sean. And I'm not sure if Martha was in there with them or not, but I see them in the office, and they were in there for a long time talking, and I'm like, I see the handwriting on the wall. I think I'm done.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so
you get that feeling. You're like, yeah, they're talking about me.
And so I find this bill, and I'm like, oh. So then I knock on the door, interrupt him, and say, I found this over there. And Sean is so funny because he. Here I'm trying to not even put any fingerprints on this thing. He just grabs it and goes like this, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like making sure he puts prints all over it.
Yeah, because he can decipher between his and yours if.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, not like they do prints, but I don't know. Who knows? And I thought, well, if they did do prints, maybe they could figure out who it is.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Give me that back.
I don't know what they can. I don't know what they can do and what they can't. So I'm like, well, it's almost like he wanted to wipe some of these prints off of it. So then he tells me to give it to Martha, so I did, and she goes, "Oh, well, maybe it got left there, in that sale." And I'm like, "I don't think so. It just appeared this morning."
Yeah, it wasn't there.
Yeah, it wasn't there before.
It wasn't there at this point, and I go back and it's there. Oh, that was a total setup, and it's that underhanded crap like that just.
Well, I noticed I noticed something else about Gary is that he wouldn't answer his emails. He got a lot of emails, and he wanted everybody to carbon copy him, but he would never answer his emails. And I finally figured out one day that I don't think he could answer his emails because I'm not sure that he's able to write very well.
Or read.
I'm not sure about that, but.
Well, Martha sent him to reading and writing school to help him become a better manager, but I'm thinking that didn't work out. So that might have been. He might have taken off 10 days for the school, but he was actually only at the school for 3 days.
so I actually stopped carbon copying him because he never read them anyway. Well, Martha gave me trouble. Why aren't you carbon copying him? He doesn't read them anyway. It's a waste of storage space on our server.
Yeah.
And so I started doing it again because, it's like, I got nothing to hide from him,
Yeah, just an extra person that, but that. Gmail Gary, that's what I call him.
Yeah. Yeah, they. I also found it odd that that Robin had access to
Robin Goldring.
That she had access to that room. She came in one day unannounced, and I'm like, "How'd she get in here?" She had her own access to that room.
Into what room?
the IT room.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, well, why should she have access to the IT room?
She shouldn't.
No, she shouldn't. So I found that interesting. And
So do I. So do I.
I also found it very interesting that they made sure that they secured the door for the room with all the files and everything in it. But yet, you could easily get over that wall and just go in there and get whatever you wanted.
And you're talking the confidential information, which is probably refers to this confidential stuff of the employees, the HIPAA, the paratransit things. Also, the drug and alcohol testing records all have to be in a location.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be secure. And I told him, I said, you need to put something over this, even if it's iron bars or something, but you've got to do something.
Yes.
And I don't think they ever did.
I don't think they did either, but I'm hopefully going to go on a tour before the March 27th meeting, which is my birthday. Maybe I'll do it on March 27th at the meeting.
I mean, for what it would cost to do that, it's a drop in the bucket from what they've already spent.
Well, for what they're going to be charged with for a HIPAA breach.
Well, yeah.
For a breach of...
Hadn't even thought of that.
And also, not only for the physical files, but also for the virtual files on a computer that hadn't had a bare metal backup, and how long. It wasn't being protected. It was open to, so yeah, they're going to be...
This is another thing that was an issue. From the time that I found out, this is Monday, March 18, from the time that I found out that I was supposed to be keeping track, I kept track of everything that I did and all the stuff that was related to the new construction.
Right, nice.
Gary and Judd never kept track of anything. And they just write down, worked in the new building for 8 hours. Well, that is false, because we were doing other things during that time. Like investigating bus things and stuff like that, fixing cameras, which that brings up another point. Whoever put in those cameras, they did not put any type of, if you used conductive grease, you'd have to be careful not to not get conductive grease over the whole thing so that it bled over from one pin to another. Yeah. That's what General Motors did one time, is they put conductive grease over a whole bulkhead connector, and they started having the trunk open light stay on because it was bleeding through. Yeah. So you'd have to be careful if you use conductive grease, but you could put silicone grease in there.
Because it's conductive.
You could use silicone dielectric grease in there. But basically, these are connectors that are not weatherproof. They're in a hostile environment, and I started seeing problems with cameras on these buses, and I started fixing them, and I started tracking it down to bad connections. They should have been packing those things with if they didn't want to be careful, they could just use dielectric grease, and that would weatherproof it. And it's good. It's stiff. I've used that on all kinds of things. That even stuff that sits in the sun, things that get hot, it doesn't melt, and it will keep the moisture out, and it will keep any contaminants out. And so basically, that's where they were having a bunch of problems with those. And so whoever put those cameras in, I don't know who did it, but that should have been done right, and the wiring was never done right. So there's a lot of work that was done there that was done by amateurs, people that don't understand what they're doing. And I think a place should really hire people that know what they're doing instead of friends and relatives.
Yes.
So,
yes. and people that have the bare basics of what it's like to work with those small electronic devices.
And it's nice to have friends and stuff and people that you get along with, but I really had no problem getting along with Gary and Judd. I like them on a personal level, but it drove me crazy that they really didn't understand what they were doing. That there was so many gaps in their education. They had not worked with equipment. They had not worked with machines. And I've been working with machines all my life, and I see some of this stuff, and I'm like, oh my God. And Gary's background was what, a truck driver, milk delivery guy, and so was Judd, and and that's fine. You can always retrain and do another career, but some people don't have the aptitude. You have to have that And I've been driven to technology and machines all my life, and I learned a ton from my dad. My dad actually, worked for a dealership for a while, so he was into cars. So was my grandfather. And then my dad went to work for a company, Eureka Williams, and it's just called Eureka Company now. And he took every job in that company. He went through and did the assembly line, and he worked every job. Well, they figured out he was smart. They sent him back to school. He only had an 8th grade education, and they sent him back to school, and he became an electrical engineer. And he designed motors for him, until he retired. He worked for him for 37 years.
Wow.
And so people can retrain and they can be better, but you have to have kind of the aptitude for it. And they found out that yes, he was really good with machines, and and he did all the assembly line stuff, all the automation.
Nice.
He set up all that stuff. He would come home with huge. Back then they had these things they called bed sheets. They were huge schematics.
Okay.
And now they break them down into the thing they call Valley Forge, and it's smaller breakdowns, and so it's easier to understand. But he would have these huge things, and he could have that whole thing in his head at one time. And and he's like, okay, I need to change this over here. And I was very impressed, and I was like, wow, that's cool. I'm a kid watching him, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. So
I've had to do that where I've had to unroll publications and just have it go out and that's going to leave a mark.
Valley Forge can actually be a bad thing too, though, because sometimes they break up a single circuit. Yeah. And then it's confusing. Because and so I a lot of times I'll take the pages and copy them, and then I'll tape them together. Yeah. And draw the lines in between, and it's like now I got the whole thing in front of me. Now I can understand it. So there's good and bad to both of those, but I just don't, there was no formal training that was done, and they aren't the type of person. They like to play games. That's what they do on their time off, and I don't do that on my time off. I'm always trying to make myself better. I'm training, I'm updating my skills, and you have to. There's no way to keep up with it if you don't.
Especially with technology, that.
And I don't like games, so it works out good for me.
Yeah.
My son loves games, and he wastes a lot of time on games. But if that's what you like to do, then that's fine.
Yeah.
And he does customer support. So my sister's a programmer for Oracle.
Nice.
And so she's a nightmare. She's an accountant that knows how to program.
Right.
Yeah. So she's her worst nightmare. And so she's a senior analyst for Oracle, but she got out of school and with an accounting degree and went to work for a big accounting firm, and they were starting to go computerized. Mm-hmm. This has been a lot of years ago. Yeah. And they said, anybody want to go to school on computers? That's what she did. Right.
My dad never got into the computers very much, but he was a 32-year accountant with Solar, turned International Harvester, turned Navistar. He was a CPA with them, and he actually started off at the company sweeping floors to get paid to work his way through college to become an accountant. But he still did pencil and paper, so I'm very aware of what are the responsibilities of a CPA, which is why I think whenever I mention federal money, the current financial manager of Island Transit, all the color just drains out of them. All of it. Because I'm like, they're coming for you. I wouldn't put federal money in there, buddy. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, that's another thing, too, is I know how to program. I can program microcontrollers. I write programs for computers. Those guys do not program. They can't write scripts. Judd needed a script to transfer our email over from the older Outlook to the newer Outlook. Yeah. And why Microsoft doesn't provide that, I don't know. So I went home that night, wrote the script, came in the next morning, gave it to Judd. And he's like, "Oh, that's cool that you can do that. I just can't do that." And there are some people that can, some people that can't, and there are things that I look at and I say, "Oh my God, I could never do that." Yeah. It's just some people their mind just works that way. I can think of I've seen people that knit you know, they knit things, and I'm like, I can never do that. I don't know how do you even do that. So, you know, I think your mind is more, you know, focused to certain things.
Certain pieces.
But unfortunately, that IT department needs a real severe looking over, and there's still, unfortunately, there's probably about 7 people that I can count that need to be removed from that company because they still have the same mind frame, and that includes the newest director.
Yeah.
Because I think he probably still has the same mindset, and it's still going to go down the same road, unfortunately. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong, but you know, but
we can put a small wager on that. I'm saying he does. When King Garaska is at the public meet and greet before they choose one of the 3 people for the temporary executive director job, King Garaska would like to joke around and say that when he was at Community Transit, he actually trained Martha. He was like a consultant for her.
he
This
was.
is back in 95. Yes, this is back in
Oh,
95.
Lord.
This is back in 95 before the federal indictment came in and swooped into Community is it Community Transit? And you know, floored them down.
Well,
But it's all the same thing. It's all the same tactics. And it all funds.
Well, Martha's always been so mean to people, and I when I heard that he was, you know, mean to people too, that I'm like, for God's sakes, why do you have to be mean to people?
I believe the auditor said that his management style was paralyzing.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what
And then, you know, there are
many people can say about Martha.
well, there's much more productivity in companies where people are happy and you're able to work out the problems.
Right.
You don't have to be mean to people.
No, you don't.
I mean, it's totally unnecessary.
No. No, you don't. And but Sean Harris is probably the worst with the way that he handles his management style.
He makes fun of people a lot of times, and you know, he made fun of me that one day when I you know, tried to, you know, give that money back. He came into IT later on with I believe it was $20 bill, and threw it on the floor. And he's like, oh, look at this, you know. He's like making fun of me. And you know, it's like, what? Did you want me to just keep this $100 bill? You're just making fun of me, or what? You know, I'm trying to do the right thing, or
yeah, I'm trying to do the ethical thing.
It's like maybe that was my severance pay. The $100 that was my severance pay.
That's it. That was that's all the overtime payment you're getting.
But I was hoping there might be some way that we could actually find who owned it. Maybe it was a construction worker or something that had $100 in his pocket, and he reached in his pocket to grab something, and it came out.
Yeah.
You know, so I've had that happen before, where I reach into my pocket and something flies out.
And not knowing.
You know.
Yeah. And I could see where a construction worker there would have a $100 bill in their pocket, maybe for Martha.
Yeah. Here, do this. That'd be for the inspectors.
Right. Which reminds me,
We should not go that direction.
I got to do a public records request for the 2012 Washington State FTA on site.
Actually, I think Tiger did a really wonderful job, and I actually took pictures, which they promptly deleted. I took pictures of everything in that building before it was all closed up.
Yeah.
So that we'd know where every pipe, where every wire was, everything. So if we had a problem, we were good. Well, Gary and Judd deleted my account, and it was all in there. They should have actually looked in there before they deleted it.
Yeah, that way you don't have to go hammering with the sledgehammer through walls to try and find where something's out, which you know they would.
Yeah, I was like, I guess it's not here. I got to call my guru to patch this back up. No, that's just wrong. I like laughing and having a good time, but you know, it's you know, when you're at work, you're at work to work. Yes. And you know, when I was working with a lot of my friends, and we were on commission. I worked on commission for a while, and we could talk and we could work at the same time, and we were motivated because if we didn't get the work done, we weren't going to get paid. Mm-hmm. And so that's why a lot of automotive stuff is commission, is because people get lazy, you know, and you know, it's like I don't allow myself to get lazy. I keep kicking myself in the pants, and I will not allow myself to do that. Unfortunately, some other people will. In fact, when you were on commission, it was actually hard not to give up sometimes, because you know, if you didn't have anybody coming in that you could do work for, you're not going to get paid.
Yeah.
So you're standing around for no reason.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about getting paid every month is if there's no work to do, you're still getting paid.
You still get paid.
But there's always something to do. You can always find something to do, or you can do better things. I was actually already doing research. I actually already had downloaded our website, and I was trying to get us away from Insight, and so that we had more control over our own website and didn't have to pay them all the time.
Yeah.
Because Sean really wanted that, and I'm like, well, I can do that. And I already had that started. It was already done. I already downloaded the website, and I was getting ready to take control of it. And I was actually looking at all our consequences, and I know about search engines and everything else. And if you move something on the internet, you can actually have a terrible consequence to your search engine. And Island Transit right now has a good search rating, and I didn't want to damage that. So I already had all that stuff in line. I had a bunch of programming stuff in line to do the new stuff on the buses. There's always tons of things that you can do when you think you're done. It's like, you can sit back and idle and say, ooh, that system's working great. I can just sit here and watch videos. No, you can't. You're being paid. You should be looking to the future. You should be, doing, inventories. You should be doing
preventative maintenance
and all these kind of things. And it's just, I mean, there's always a ton to do. You can educate yourself more. Keep yourself, abreast. Instead, they just watch videos and play movies, and so it's just
knowledge is power.
It was just starting to cause a huge stomachache for me, and then when I realized that, all this time I was trying to keep everybody off Judd's back so he could, study the VMware, learn how to do it and stuff, and I should have just done it myself because. When I actually trained for VMware, it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. And he worked with it for 3 months and still, I'm not sure to this day if he even gets it. It's been a long time since I've been there. Maybe he does.
I know there's an awful lot of VMware line items on the State of Good Repair report. That VMware is a couple things in there that they were. They obviously aren't.
Is he calling us gurus again? And
I have no idea.
Big bucks going to them.
Or he's just
and I listened in on the phone conversations with his gurus, and his gurus weren't that good. They didn't even know that much. They were just calling themselves gurus. I mean, anybody can call themselves a guru. I saw.
Like a used car salesman.
Well, a company came into Bellevue Cadillac Olds, and this company comes in, and this guy calls him. This guy calls himself a consultant. And I'm like looking at his background and I'm like, dude, you have no training at all in any of this stuff. And he comes in as a consultant. He gets $100,000 and he drives the place into the ground. It was basically a wonderful place, but he's like, oh yeah, the guy's going to make tons and tons of money. And he brings in all these flush machines and all these other things and all this stuff that nobody needs, but he's going to try to sell stuff to people. And people got wise. They stopped coming. They're like, that place is a ripoff. So the last time I checked, the rating of that place, it used to be, I actually have an award for the top 25 in the nation. I am the top 25 people in the nation for General Motors.
Good boy.
And I got that in 1990, I think it was. And it's like, it's like ridiculous when you look at how that same place that I was at, that dealership that I was at, went down the tubes so fast when they brought that guru in.
Yeah, for
he really didn't know what he was doing. He just called himself that, but nobody checked his credentials, and I tried to tell him.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're just not a team player. And I'm like, that stuff has been tried before and it doesn't work.
Oh yeah, and
it's like I've been around for a long time.
And consultants are normally considered a huge red flag when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse. In fact, I got that on. I've got the guy, not Gary Hess, somebody else that's Gary Hess with URS and Orca. There's another guy that was Native Plant Stewards, and he was also a consultant. I forgot the name of the company. But on the State of Good Repair, and from going through the financials for what's on the financials, this individual made bank as a consultant. I'm talking made bank. And then he's also, so that's one, to take a look at him. But also when Martha donated vans to nonprofits, she donated one to the Native Plant Stewards, which was him and another woman. And then when he left Native Plant Stewards, he took that donated van with them. So I question whether he has paid the sales and use tax, because that is no longer being used for the nonprofit for the purpose in which it was donated there for. So that's another thing for the IRS.
I know. It's quite a mess.
Yes.
Well,
But,
well, I'm sure probably what I've said today will seal my fate that they will never hire me again. But
Well,
I'm probably one of the best. From what I understand, after they fired me, they brought this one guy in, and he was just like them. He just really
he sat back and
didn't
talked to the women.
Didn't do nothing. Yeah.
Yep, he just sat back and enjoyed the women talk.
But as long as he gets along with Gary and Jed, it's all good. And I got along with them. It's just that it's just that I couldn't standing by and not saying something.
And yeah, especially when it was.
I mean, all these things.
It's not like it was just one or two things that they were abusing.
Well, and they were ordering things.
Everything.
They were ordering things and sending them back, because they didn't understand what they were doing. They wouldn't do their research. They would basically piss around all day long, and then the last 5 minutes they'd call up this dude and go, "Oh, we need this, this, and this."
And so,
We're done for the day. No research into the stuff.
Yeah.
They would just. And then there was so much cheaper alternatives, better alternatives.
Yeah.
But did they do the research? No.
Absolutely not. I can say what
And it's kind of funny because there was a lot of Gary would actually have me write up a bunch of his order form things for him.
because you can't read it.
And I would put his name on them because I'm like
Yeah.
I'm not taking credit for this.
No, yeah, not when it's it's massive. It's massive. That's what I try to tell people. They think that there's just a couple, $100,000 missing that she might have misappropriated.
There's a
But
lot
from what I
missing.
can tell, there are millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that are gone missing, and they have no idea what's fixing to come down on that place, which is scary that they just don't get it. They just do not get it.
Yeah, it's too bad because there was a lot of. It's actually too bad I'm gone because by now I could have had a lot of stuff done for him that
You can
I can't do.
And that is one of the things that I believe under wrongful termination. I believe that one of the remedies, is under the point of being offered your job back because you were wrongfully terminated. And this is one of the things that who I'm going to be sending some of these videos to, up and say, because there's. I would never expect or even think that you would consider going back there right now in its current situation, having to work with Gary Minker, Judd Nelson, and Sean Harris. Because believe me.
Oh, I think they would make my life miserable, and they would probably, do some things, where I would be fired anyway. They'd probably try to put me in a situation where it would be like just cause or something. And
they don't have to have that. They lie about it all.
I could see that coming. Yeah.
Yeah. It would. It is. It continues as an extremely hostile work environment. I can't believe what I hear and see.
Basically, Martha told me that I just didn't fit in. Well, I didn't fit in because I wanted to work hard, So I wanted to get my job done, and I actually was putting in 90-hour weeks, and this place was going to hell. I didn't have time to even mow the lawn.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because there's so much there, and then what they. Yeah, it's definitely the hostile work environment. But I would hope that because at the next meeting on March 27th, I'll let them know these people. This is your management staff that needs to go. Your Martha Rose's trained mobbing management staff. They need to. Just shut it down. shut it down, bring it to the
Yeah,
floor,
that's-
and build it back up from the floor, because that's what it's gonna take in this place, because it is so.
And put it out there for some people that know what they're doing.
Yes. But to know that there's yes, they could immediately fire both info technology people.
Oh yeah, I could walk right in
You
there.
could walk right in that door.
And even if they didn't give me, even if they didn't give me passwords to stuff, I know how to hack passwords. So I mean, I've been in IT for a long time.
Yeah.
I program. I know how all that stuff works. They wouldn't even have to give me the passwords.
No, but to know that there's somebody that could walk in there, and so that.
Oh, that's another thing that Sean did to me. Is during the exit thing, he goes, "Oh yeah, you were messing around in the system at night." I had to mess around in the system at night because I was looking around for stuff that Judd wasn't doing.
Oh, this is
And-
when.
Yeah, during the thing. And it's almost like that I was spying on the system. I'm like, well, number one, I told Judd that he needed to write everything down so I knew what the server names were, how our configuration was and everything else.
Yeah.
I had to figure it out and write it down for myself because he never came up with that information.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're messing around with the system at night." I had to. It's the only way I knew what was going on.
So you were messing around with the system at night when they were obviously messing around with the system at 2200
Yeah.
to change your job description.
Yeah, they changed my job description. Sean comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, you got, you haven't done your inventory on these laptops and stuff." And I'm like, "What inventory?" And he goes, "You're supposed to inventory this stuff." And I'm like, "That's not in my job description." And he gives me a blank stare. The next day, there is an updated job description that still has the same date on the bottom. But I looked at the metadata and it had been changed.
Instead of being February.
I don't think they know how to look at the metadata. I do.
No. Instead of it was February something instead of, February 5th, 2013.
Yeah, it was changed.
Instead of January 31st.
Yeah, it was changed a few days later.
Yeah. I say you went in. Yeah.
So the one that I looked at.
But you can't play with the system at night to check the integrity of a system that's supposed to be protected. But they can go in and.
Yeah, they can go in at night and change this stuff at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. And actually, it was Sandra Kirkendall that it looks like went in there. Or the name of the computer.
Well, yeah, that's who was the original author of it.
Yeah. How does Sandra Kirkendall know info technology qualifications?
All she had to do was go in and, all she had to do is go in and change the file, or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anybody could go in and change that
Yeah.
file. It's basically, that file is sitting on, our Insight website.
Yeah.
And you go into the Insight website and you can actually upload, the new file to it.
Yeah.
Well, the new file is going to have the correct file date and metadata, but at the bottom it says the other date.
Because
So if you look on that machine, it's still going to have the right file date. But once I download it, I have to look at the metadata, because as soon as that goes from one machine to another, the date changes. The modified date changes.
Yeah.